All right, welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for another Twitter space. Today is November 15th, 2022, and this is episode 75 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale Foundation was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to help scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware to provide infrastructural support to all of the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. We host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we host a focus topic space from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And if I could just ask if everyone could give us a follow on Twitter at ledgerscale. Turn those notifications on so you know when we're going live. And as well as at the bottom right, we got the bubble today. So if everyone could like and retweet the space so that hopefully this information can be heard by other people and they find it valuable in the future. Are you there, Karma? Twitter. I yeah, I could see I saw the wave at least, but I can't hear you if you're talking. Is anybody else able to hear Karma speak? Morning, Alex.
Morning, brother. How are you? I can't hear Karma yet either, so very interested to be able to see what happened at the summit as well. So hopefully you can get that problem sorted and jump back on and give us some gaff.
Yeah. And come back, Karma. Might just be glitching. All right, let's see if that worked. Trying to get him back up. But if anybody has any questions or any topics they'd like to speak about before Karma gets back up and we talk about the summit, um, please feel free to ask away right now or anything today, Alex. I haven't. I was had actually had a pretty busy day, so I didn't get to see if there was any new news.
Yeah, there hasn't really been anything that's been super important. I mean, obviously the details of FTX and things like that are still being thrown around at the moment. The news report, obviously, on the possible settlement on XRP and with Ripple and stuff like that's been circulating a little bit as well. So there's been a bit of movement on that. But having a bit of a chat to some really high-end stock guys last night. I mean, obviously it's 7:30 in the morning here. It was very, very funny to be. Or it wasn't really funny. It was actually more worrying, if anything. The sentiment coming from the sort of like the legacy system and the stock system and things like that. It's like like all this information and the internet of value to them at this stage seems to almost be a nothing burger, which I find is quite hilarious.
What do you mean by meant by the end part? What you said at the end. You said the internet of value is what to them?
It's like a nothing burger. Like, it's not really anything that's super important. Like the technology that everyone's putting together and the financial institution and world governments and all the information that we talk about on basically a daily basis doesn't seem to have much of a resonance with like the big boy players when it comes to stocks and bonds and finance and commodities. And I don't think they really realize what's going on their back end.
Well, maybe some people don't, but your biggest players, right, are your central banks. They're the ones, and it's a top-down approach, like from the perspective of how you were speaking about the G7 yesterday and the G20. It's and this is how society truly works, right? It's a top-down approach, so things are coming down from the top, right? And it's these are how technologies and things like that are being implemented, especially if it's a financial structure thing, right? um, Things like the BIS and the central banks of the world would probably be the ones to usher in this new technology, which leads to the internet of value, right? The ability to transfer that value anywhere in the world instantaneously, right, for nominal zero fee. And just give me a sec, I'll make it karma up.
Yeah, it was quite funny. I mean, I starting to be able to sort of touch on the Nostro Vostro situation, and all the back end issues that we've got in. The what at the moment isn't exactly internet of value. It's more like just an ancient messaging system that they've got very comfortable with, and they know how that it works. And I mean, we all know that the technology is starting to be able to change and being implemented. I mean, even just with the ISO compliance for all the messaging systems as well. I mean, they really weren't actually aware of even that sort of happening too. So I think we're definitely on the right path when it comes down to the top down situation, and it may be even that their interest in these systems that we chat about and love so much won't really affect most of those guys. It's going to be the back end that they don't even realize that it's running on a brand spanking new rail.
Yeah, and the funny thing is if we say the internet of value, right? Well, you could almost think of, and this is a good analytic, I'm gonna not even gonna try right now for some reason. What was that?
Analogous.
Analogous. Thank you. To how we could say, like, the distributed ledger technology as being integrated into systems is like in the early days of the internet, which was the intranet instead of the internet, right? So we have these intranets, almost of value, right? All the central banks in the world, so they're still intra, and we're just going to connect them, and they're going to be the internet of value. And it's, you could really look at it that simply. There's a lot of other things in that, right? But it's a good way to kind of think about it. I like that, Alex. And I'm glad you're back, Karma. That's definitely want to talk about the summit.
Yeah, I was co-host, listener, and speaker all at the same time with no mic button. So I don't know what the heck just happened. That was I never had that quite happen. But yeah, the conference was really amazing. It was fun, so many great people, good information. I don't know where to start. Rafiki's gotten some upgrades. The Dazi thing was, I think I've got a better grip on what that's about. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like think about it, like day one, right? First speakers were talking about Rafiki. Like, how did you feel just sitting? We're like, wow.
well, I mean, it was just a bit more like, okay, this is at institutional level. And then Tiger Beetle was something that I just had absolutely no awareness of. And that was very impressive. Uh, yeah. And then just all the people, one of the things, at least that I enjoyed, was just people from all over every corner of the world. I mean, it was just, like everywhere. So that was fun. It wasn't a big crowd. I'd say 100 plus or minus a few. I mean, still 100 people is a lot of people, but
That's awesome.
what I think what that, if you go, like, Apex was way bigger. So you didn't have as many, like, they had a hacker room where you could just go and basically chat with people and talk. And, you know, it was a small enough event that you could have kind of, you know, small group conversations could emerge. Because you get to like a super big event. I mean, think of like a concert. Nobody sits around in small groups and has a conversation. You can get big enough where that goes away, but it was small enough, and they had the space set up so that people could sit and just talk, and that was cool. And yeah, everybody was nice, and dude, everybody like smart, and lots of people were working on various projects. Um, I'm not sure where to go. If you want to dive into any of those particular subjects,
Well, maybe kind of like, can you give us a brief overlay of, like, some of the projects that came up and what each one of them was about? If you can sort of touch on that, I think that'd be really, really helpful.
well, Dazi, hang on a second.
Sorry, I put my phone down for a minute.
You're good. Dazi is okay. So you've got like there's one slide. If you go on the video on YouTube and find the slide that does like a compare contrast against Rafiki and Dazi, because they essentially perform the same function, sort of, with differences. And it's the understanding the differences is what's interesting. Um, Rafiki is going to be more your institutional grade level. It's going to require a lot more configuration. You're going to need to know what you're doing. You're going to need to likely have business relationships with the people that you're peering with. A lot of this comes down to peering, so like the connection point, because obviously it's a network. Um, uh, Dazi has it's like essentially all pre-configured. So you can, like let's say you're a college student or just a hacker kind of working on let me see if this works kind of project. Um, you can spin up Dazi, and it you don't have to like become an expert, right? You can just spin it up, get going, start experimenting, and then when you grow, hopefully a successful service offering, then you can ultimately switch over to Rafiki to be more at like the institutional level. And that was really cool. There's a lot of other differences, but the whole video is worth a watch. But especially if you only have a little bit of time, the first 3 presentations on Rafiki, Tiger Beetle, and Dazi, like those I would watch. I've already rewatched them, to be honest.
Maybe just for the people that haven't watched the video, like what is the Dazi and Rafiki systems?
Essentially, do you know what the connector role is in the ILP, like, I don't know, architecture or whatever you want to call it, system? It's so you got ledger A and ledger B. There's got to be a connector, somebody who plays the role of holding an account on both sides. In interledger protocol, they call it a connector. There's no difference between that and a liquidity provider and a market maker. I think Flair calls it an agent that goes between the 2 ledgers. I'm probably missing a couple of other terms that all mean the same thing. It's the person or the node that connects 2 different ledgers. So you got to run some software to do that. That's what Rafiki and Dazi do, or enable you to do. If that makes any sense. I hope that made sense. It's just what level of sophistication and like configuration do you want to engage in, and like, yeah. And then the Tiger Beetle thing. Sorry, well, I don't want to switch subjects yet. What if anybody has a question or something?
Yeah, so I just like Rafiki or I guess and Dazi, but they're basically as acting as a connector. They're really building an interface that's easy to use so that the data can be read from account A and account B and intermediary. And that I think is crazy. What they're attempting to build for what it'll be utilized is really helping interconnect the entire species. I mean, that's being able to have these payment pointers is really one of the aspects of having that Internet of Value. So you can transfer value instantaneously to anybody anywhere in the world, or predominantly zero fee, especially with Interledger being a protocol. There's no blockchain, there's no fee.
Yeah, the payment pointers, that was Adrian. That was a whole nother. We'll get there. There was somebody on a space the other day, and they were saying what they were working on, and I was like, dude, just go look at payment pointers because it's already done. Not trying to be rude to them, but I was like, it's already done. Like, what you're trying to do is a good thing. It needs to be done. That's why it's already done. I mean, I hope I didn't like disappoint him or anything, but yeah, great minds think alike, you know. Uh,
Yeah, and if you want to go into talking about the data centers, yeah, I also was amazed by that presentation that they're building dedicated data centers for for the Interledger protocol.
well, not data centers, databases. Uh, this is this was I just had absolutely no awareness of Tiger Beetle, so I was just I was. It's very impressive. Is Chris in here? Oh, dang. Chris was looking at it. He's better at this. This stuff goes over my head, to be honest. But it's essentially can do like 1 million transactions a second. So and then it like on like very cheap consumer grade, even like as low consumer grade as a Raspberry Pi. Um,
Wow,
but it's some
is it a blockchain?
no, it's a database type. It's
Oh,
a
all
type
right.
of database. Um, well, I mean, I guess technically blockchains are databases, but um, it's because interledger protocol, like if you want to do all these microtransactions, you need to go fast, like really fast, as possible. And so the Tiger Beetle database will process that volume and cheaply, right? Because you don't have to have. You know what I was most surprised about in that presentation? You don't have to have expensive hardware. Let me finish my sentence. Sorry.
Sounds great. I'm gonna look it up. Have never heard of it before, but maybe
Me
I
neither.
skipped a few spaces.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. I was like, okay, here's this guy, and he did a good. I actually went and told him he did a good presentation because I mean he did like forget the content, but just his presentation was good.
I also
Uh,
Yeah, cool.
I also thought he was really stylish. I don't know why.
well, that's kind of what I mean. Like his presentation was good. Like
It was.
he kind of. There was a couple of good. I also think David did a good presentation. Um, the Sum Assembly. Actually, I ended up on stage for that one. The Anyway, where was I going?
Tiger Beetle. That's all I heard, but I don't
Uh,
know what you were talking
the,
about
the,
before.
the thing that surprised me the most was he said that the institutional players like JP Morgan and the biggest players, because they're all using like MySQL databases or something like that, they can only do 1,000 transactions a second. And like this thing can do 1 million. This database type can do 1 million
Yeah,
transactions a second, and
yeah,
th- those guys are paying tons of money to run expensive machines to do 1,000 a second. And you're telling me you can do 1 million a second with a Raspberry Pi for $30?
yeah. That's brilliant. I mean, that. Yeah, it is. But I think one of the big problems in like small medium enterprises, but even in big corporations, for as far as I can tell, is that when the current system that they have, their software system, isn't up to par, then you see people grasping and working around with Microsoft Excel, and that isn't a database, but they use it a lot, and then that gets copied around, and it will be difficult to see if you can move everything to a different database or structure because many things run on Excel.
Hold on, I gotta stand up for my Excel because that's my modeling tool.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
pretty good with it too.
the If you consider that each sheet is like a different table, Excel is kind of like a database.
Yeah, but it isn't a database. It's far too limited to be a database.
What's that?
Yeah, sorry, I got a new headset. It's a real cheap one that I just got today because the other one broke down, but it's too limited to function as a database
Um,
in both size and speed.
yeah, it's not the same. I'm just making a
But
fuzzy comparison, just to back up Excel because I like it.
yeah, I like it too. Just one thing that I wanted to ask, like the big corporations using MySQL, um, like, does any of the Internet of Value or like Interledger Protocol that you've been reading up on for the last couple of years, Does that ever mention corporations like the Intesi Group or InfoCert or MSG or
Uh,
Microsoft for that matter?
Microsoft, yes. I don't know those other names, but Microsoft's been around for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd figured that one. Yeah, I posted a tweet in the nest. It was something I posted saw posted today. Uh, it's a meeting in Berlin this Thursday in regards to the digital identity in Europe, and the sponsors are Microsoft, MSG, InfoCert, and Intesi Group, which I think.
Microsoft
Yeah,
too.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Microsoft, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates has adopted the Interledger Protocol, but Mojo Loop, right, is a project that he has advocated very strongly for multiple times already. So
Yeah.
they're trying to.
Mojo was there. I had a drink with their two representatives. The lady I think was the one in charge of Mojo Loop, and then I'm not sure what I got the guy's business card. Actually, I need to email him.
And they're
Hmm.
doing great things. They're trying to unbank the bank, bank the unbanked in southern parts of Africa, and you know,
Cool.
with the Interledger Protocol.
Yeah, I got to email them. Um, well, Mojo Loop started out as essentially a copy of Interledger, ILP, whatever. I think they maybe should branding purposes drop the protocol. Just call it Interledger. What else? Payment pointers. That was interesting. That was, I mean, I kind of knew about payment pointers anyway. But oh, there was a question I was going to ask Adrian and I didn't.
Yeah, and also if Steak, if you want to go back after the chat's over later, it was filmed the Tiger Beetle. All of the speakers, their perform their their time slots were filmed on YouTube. Day one and day two, Karma posted it, and so did I.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks.
if you're into the stuff, it's totally worth watching. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than flying out there and getting a hotel where the door doesn't open. But uh, it's totally worth it. I mean, it's worth
Yeah,
your time.
if you're into this stuff, I don't even know what I'm into anymore. I'm seeing so many things.
Well, the tiger beetle thing just completely. I had no idea that that was. I mean, that type of performance enhancement is like beyond significant. And I'm sure that there's people out there that are obviously way more technical, knowledgeable than I am. There's got to be some drawbacks somewhere.
Yeah, like if you want to have like a high-end software searches in databases, like for marketing purposes and advertorial purposes, I actually know a guy that's in this field. He's the father of one of the kids in my boys' class, and he runs one of the leading marketing firms in the Netherlands in regards to ads on Facebook and Google. He was actually invited with Meta as well because he also uses the eye beacons to track movement of what people do and behavior and stuff like that. Anyways, he says we need at least 25,000 a second. So
Yeah.
um, this easily covers that.
Well, this is why. Well, this is just transaction processing. I'm sure probably the drawback is maybe it's only for a certain data format or something. I don't know, man. This stuff's over my head. Um,
Well, that depends,
but
right? If you could, for example, scan social media profiles on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and you can do 1 million a second. Jesus Christ, with one query, you could get so much search results.
But see, they might not be able to scan. I don't know, dude. But the thing that this is to like you're saying that for, and that's just a marketing thing for 25,000. That's
Yeah,
just a
because
marketing.
right now it's like between 15, 18 to maybe 25,000 is what they need ultimately to have an edge over their competition right now with profile scanned a second. So if they go to 1 million, that's basically the holy grail of marketing.
Well, the the thing that just to reiterate that shocked me was that he said the banks can only do 1,000 a second, 1,000 transactions.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
a
it
feeling that
sounds
at stake, maybe the Tiger Beetle database would not be applicable. I don't know why. I can't explain that. I just kind of scratch and sniff type of. I don't. I think it's
mm,
probably a pretty database, like pretty like highly specifically designed for just transaction processing, and so it's probably got a lot of shortcomings for other
right.
type of things.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
I don't know. Like I said, this stuff's over my head. I've worked with people before that could explain that kind of thing and look at it and understand it in 5 minutes, but that ain't me. I don't
Well, I'd
know that.
love to see the presentation. So if someone's going to tweet about it or get a link to share, then I'd love to see it. Yeah,
Yeah, just Google Tiger Beetle database.
yeah, I'm
If
looking
Chris,
looking at their website right now. Will
if
the
Chris was in here, he started looking through it, and he said he was pretty impressed. He was like, "Oh wow!" Like we had a message thing back and forth about it. Um, so I did just that's I'm more on the finance side
mm,
of things. I mean, I listen to folks that know that kind of thing because I don't. So yeah.
I posted I posted day one and day two up top if you want. After the chat stake, I think
cool.
Tiger Beetle
Thanks.
was the third speaker on day one, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Karma? It was Rafiki, and then I can't actually. No. I think he might have been the second speaker. Actually, now that I think about it, it was Rafiki. Then it was Tiger Beetle. Then it was Dazi Land. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, I don't know what else. Payment pointers. I don't know. Does everybody in here know payment pointers? Like I knew about that ahead of time.
Or
So
maybe it'd be a good time to be able to sort of like, give a brief overlay of exactly what payment pointers are, just for everyone.
And the future of what they will be used with you.
I think essentially it's an email address for money. You know how your email address is like name dot email service provider dot com, usually a com. It's that, except for money. Uh, oh, I'm not going to say this right, so I don't want to say it. There's a little bit of stuff because you might be crossing ledgers, hence interledger. And there was some stuff. I'm gonna have to rewatch how he explained that. But the essentially it's like it's a routing thing, so it points to the destination. Um, and I think he said they had push and pull payments, but it's a routing system. So send the money to from this ILP connector to this ILP connector to this destination account. But it's easy, human friendly, like human readable, friendly, and ubiquitous. You can go on Finbos. You should watch their presentation as well. And sign up for a Finbos payment pointer, which is, I mean, you can get a payment pointer from, I think, Global ID as well. But you can go on there and get in before the beta if you want to. It's FYNBOS. And then yeah, that's they gave everybody actually it's sitting here, a coffee mug, and it's got a QR code that signs you up for the like pre-beta or whatever. But they're gonna have the payment pointers, and Finbos, what they're doing, they're working on becoming, so like internet service providers, and you got like tier 1, tier 2 type different levels of, are you a hub node like a tier 1, are you a lower node like a tier 2? Finbos is going to be one of the a tier 1 interledger protocol connector. So for a traditional finance, I don't want to, anyway. So yeah, so you can get in, and they'll give you a payment pointer, and then you can just, it's like an email address for your wallet. For any wallet, like on any ledger, not just your bank, not just your XRP, not just your Bitcoin, not just your ETH, for all of them. Hence the interledger aspect. I mean, obviously. I'm sure I probably said something that's technically wrong, but that's the essence of it. You know, it doesn't matter where you're emailing me from. Just send it to this address and I'll get it.
Yeah, and like I would say, the where it comes down to in the end of the day is not retail implementing it, but on an institutional grade level, where whether you have Google or it's your bank account, it's as easy as okay, I want to send you money at so and so's name, and it doesn't matter where your value is stored, where your account is, but they're all interconnected.
Well, it starts with a $sign, and then it's the same format. So you have like, and I'm going to screw this up, but you have your higher and then dot, and then the next connector, and then dot, and then the next connector, and then end user, like dot end user, and then it goes to their account. But there's a lot of it's easier than that, but that functionality wise, that's what it's accomplishing. It's easier from the end user perspective. Functionality wise, there's other things going on.
And this is the biggest thing of where I would say we're at the early days of interledger protocol, because it has to be adopted and implemented, and for it to have full scale usage, right? And so we're in the early days of it. The interfaces and the easy API plugin connections are really just being built today. So it's not ready for that usage yet, but very soon, I think.
Well, that's what Dazi was or is. Like I was talking with the lady who works with Coil, because Stefan is doing Dazi as a personal project at the moment. and he, I guess, didn't talk about it. So they just found out about it recently. And yeah, I mean, these initial tools are getting built now. Once the tools are built, the developers will pick them up and use them, and they'll build things. And I think the big deal with Dazi is it makes it so easy to be a connector. That's the whole point, is to move the Dazi closer to being closer for Dazi to enable moving the pendulum closer to the easy to start up side of the pendulum. Okay, Rafiki might be for your institutional folks on the harder side to set up of pendulum, easy, hard. Dazi's on the easy side.
Does that touch into any regulatory processes? Like, I mean, obviously, with money transactions and across borders and things like that. I mean, making sure that there's a proper party on the other end. Have they got any processes to be able to attach sort of the KYC situation with that?
So there was two questions I was going to stand up and ask, except Scott did ask I told him later on. I was like, dude, if you didn't ask those questions, I was going to stand up and ask. One of them is the regulatory question, because what if the Dazi configuration has me pair or peer with like a sanctioned country or something? Not like, and I'm just a college student in a dorm doing a research project. Now all of a sudden I'm stuck in a situation with being connected with a sanctioned country, and that's a concern. What was the other one? Oh shit.
Like along the KYC kind of line, or?
It's on the video, and you can see Stefan's answer. But those are the exact same two questions that I was going to ask, if nobody else did. So yeah, you can watch that part of the video, and yeah, and then you can hear his answer.
Yeah, I suppose it is definitely a really important part of this new technology as well. I mean, it's easy to be able to transfer, it's getting to the point where it's easy enough to be able to transfer the data, or, cash value or value or whatever package it's actually going to be, but then also making sure you got the regulatory base in there to make sure that you're not dealing with bad actors and, bad people and, as you said, like sanctioned countries and things like that. Because, I mean, if everything can be routed and, say if someone's got another hop to another account or something like that, you need to make sure that it's safe for you to be able to use, just on a law side of things.
Yeah, from a technology point of view, it's not that hard. I mean, well, I'm not saying it's easy, but if you don't, you have to. It's money, dude. You got to consider the regulatory. You have to. No, it's a must-have. It's not like an optional thing.
Oh, well, the sooner they can get some of these things up and running, I mean, the better. Whether it be just in a test form, I mean, they're probably past the test format, more to the implementation of this stuff. Obviously, there's still a long way to be able to go, and not everyone's going to agree on things. I mean, look at the splitting of the BRICS nations and things like that as well. I mean, like the dollar value probably won't be in dollars anymore at some point. So bad actors and sanctioned countries and things like that, it's definitely going to come into play really, really soon.
Yeah, but on the Dazi thing, Yeah, I mean, you just can't. It's not something that can be ignored. Flat, just period. But he did put the code public. I haven't looked at it, but it's on GitHub. So there's no documentation or anything yet. And he said it's not even really quite ready for like alpha testing. So it's like that early. But I mean, if you look at the portfolio of code that Stefan's developed.
Oh, it's massive. And especially him speaking about him personally taking up coding again, developing again, specifically for to build this easy API interface connection to the Interledger protocol with these existing, you know, protocols that are already being built like Rafiki and Dazi.land. I think he specifically, I think, is working on Dazi himself, right? Karma, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's so far it's been, I guess, apparently until just recently, a personal project that he's kept secret. And they did the same thing when they built Interledger Protocol. Him and Evan, they everything was about Codius and this and that and Codius, and then all of a sudden one day it was like, oh wait, let's introduce Interledger Protocol. And like it just came out of nowhere.
As all great things do.
There was no like talk about it. There was no like get ready for pre-launch and all this kind of stuff. No, it was just like, oh yeah, by the way, here's Interledger Protocol. It's already done. We gave it to the W3C. And this totally changes the entire conceptual framework of the crypto industry.
Of the internet itself.
Well, yeah, and yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a big deal, and they just gave it away. So I guess he did the same thing with Daza. He must have been working on it. He said he had wished he had it further developed before it was released, but before like he was trying to get more development work done before the conference. But whatever, it is what it is.
The fact that all of this is open source too is so amazing. It makes it so much more adoptable for other businesses and developers and other things from other industries just to plug them.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a nice guy too. Um, we got to sit down, have a chat about the routing and stuff with Dozzy. Oh, I'm not going to remember all that right now. You know, it, but I forget which style of routing he was preferring. Because there's like forward routing, and then there's like, well, I know it as atomic versus universal, because that was the original verbiage in the Interledger Protocol documentation. He was using link and source routing as the terms, and I think Dazi does the universal or the slash aka link routing methods. So that's where the connector just passes the payment on to the next leg and to the next hop. So the connector is a node. They have a connection to this other node. They throw the payment over to them, and wherever it goes after that is nobody cares from the connector's point of the connector A's point of view. Source routing or atomic mode, once the payment gets first off, I guess you could do it. You could both, anyway, once the payment hits the destination, the pathway can be predetermined, like the hops, and then once it hits the destination node, there's like a confirmation that comes back to the sending node, so that you know that the whole transaction has completed all the way to the end. And then he was saying some other stuff that I'm not sure I understood because I couldn't hear. It was kind of loud, and so people were saying things I just I just couldn't hear them.
I could see though that confirmation being a huge thing for financial institutions. So using this new protocol of the internet, I send you millions of dollars in value. Not only does it get to you instantaneously, but I have confirmation it got to you. 100% confirmation, we could say.
Well, the banking system wants atomic mode or source, whatever, source mode. The way the internet actually works is link mode or universal mode, where it's just forward routing is the way I would call it personally. Like I pass it to you, you pass it on to the next guy, he pass on to the next guy, pass on to the next guy. All right, we got the guy his thing, the destination. I don't need to know who you're going to pass it to. You don't need to know where it came from me, right? Like all you need to know is, hey, Karma gave you this thing and asked you to pass it on and get it as close to the destination as possible. And so you just look through your routing table, figure what's the closest, cheapest path to get this payment to the destination that I have available or that you have available, and then you pass it to the next hop. Um, yeah, this is the bridge currency thing because if you can reduce the number of hops, you reduce the number of fees. It's cutting out the middleman. You know, if it only has to pass through two hands, then that's cool. If it has to pass through 10 hands just to get the job done, well, then it has to pass through 10 hands. You got to get the job done. But that's going to be more expensive than two. So it's and there doesn't, with the universal or link is what he was calling it method. You just pass it forward. It's like a hot potato. Just give it to the next guy.
Welcome up, Shellfish and Rev. Go ahead, Shellfish. You have your hand raised. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's actually what I hate about Venmo is that you know every person that you have to connect with to send the money, and you get to either put a memo or an emoji. And I know a lot of people that I am connected with, they'll just put in there like for sexual favors now, just to mess with like the algos or people looking at their stuff. Because most people don't know to put it private, right? So like when you're going through, like you can see that like who they've transacted with and what what they've done. So, not too
Well,
private on that network.
that's more of like a social network aspect. This is about like how do you actually route the money? Because each connector is going to have a spread, right? Like if they're acting as a connector, the reason they're acting as a connector is essentially because there's an FX, profit opportunity. So they're connecting, say, dollars to euros. So yeah, you wouldn't see like social media type content. I mean, it's kind of goofy that. Well, it's probably good that like Venmo has some social media aspect. Maybe it'll help people learn more about money. That would be an
or the privacy factor that you should not be transacting with certain people, or like make you more accountable, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, but the routing situation, every there's no reason to be. I mean, the core function of a connector, whether you're running like a Rafiki or Dazi, is connecting at minimum two different denominations or units of value, A and B. The like best connectors like Finbos and I'm sure they'll connect multiple currencies and institutions and whatnot. Um, that makes the difficulty in the routing sort of exponentially grow. Uh, but yeah, that's the role. And one of the things when I very, very, very first read the Interledger Protocol stuff, one of the things that I thought was a little like a brilliant was that the way the protocol is designed, it leaves an economic opportunity, like a profit opportunity, available for somebody to play the ILP connector role and connect different ledgers. And the reason why is because when you look at the health of a network, so think of the Internet of Value as a giant network of all these ledgers. You need to have, if you have an economic incentive to 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 incentivize people to connect all these ledgers up, then they will. Somebody wants to make that money. Why not? So if you have that incentive structure, then you're more likely to have an outcome that achieves, a high network density. So you have lots and lots and lots of connections, and that's desirable. That's success, actually.
That kind of sounds like that new token I just saw that came out. That I think it's uh, HFT token. I got it on Uphold, and it allows me to like send any cryptocurrency to. I guess they made an account for me, but it allows you to send any cryptocurrency just to
Well, that
one
sounds like
name.
a payment pointer. I mean, the payment pointer does that.
Oh, you got a payment pointer at Uphold, you're saying today?
It's I think it's called. Let me look at the name of the token.
Oh no, so Interledger Protocol is just a protocol. It's not a blockchain. There's no token or cost to it. Which I
This
think
token. Hash flow.
never heard of it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it until the other day either, and I ended up buying some. I had some Bitcoin, and I ended up buying some, and I ended up like reading into it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Definitely check to it. Thank you for bringing it up.
No, yes.
we're mostly talking about today because Karma was at the Interledger Protocol Summit just a couple days ago. And he just got back, and so we've just been talking about all the different factors and things that are going to be possible with the Interledger Protocol soon in the future.
Yeah, I guess we normally do like an open chat on these days, but it is a little bit almost kind of focused.
Yeah, it has been. It's good. I like, but you know, right? I like it, but specifically to the Internet of Value. Uh, if anybody has any questions, like just like Rev, right? Like if you have want to bring up other things, there's no problem with it. We could have different discussions, but the Interledger Protocol should be looked at as one of the most significant things I think to the Internet of Value because it's going to play a huge role in the interconnecting of our species. It's already been adopted, in my opinion, to be positioned for that role to be able to play out. So it's just really a waiting game for the connectors and the APIs and the interfaces and all the things that come in part with easy peasy plugins, right? To really be built.
Well, Death, it's not like gonna be. It already is. This is why Rafiki and Dazzy are important. They're like step two. Step one, the W3C, they gave it to them. Essentially, if you do your research, you can find documentation of this. But the W3C and all the major browsers accepted it as the payments protocol. So, like Chrome, Firefox, what's the Apple one? Safari. All of these, they've already adopted the protocol. That was several years ago. Um, yeah, so now what you have to do, because the connectors are the liquidity providers. So if you want money to flow, if you want flow through a network, you got to have liquidity. So the Rafiki and Dazi are essentially tools that help enable folks who want to take advantage of the profit opportunity to provide that liquidity flow. And, I mean, that's like a third leg of the stool, if you will. Now the stool works. And then, I don't know how else to say that. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like the adoption of some of these systems has already been ingrained in, like our internet service providers, like websites, the whole works, and obviously banks must have some kind of an overview on it as well. I mean, it's just too important not to be able to get right. I mean, I also attached up the top there a little thing about Mastercard doing a 12-week experimental digital dollar pilot. I mean, obviously they are integrating some of these systems throughout, pilots or integration to what may be the new payment rails as well. So I'm sure that they'll be using some of this technology.
Well, it's got to, I mean, it's got to be like sort of, it doesn't have to be. I was going to say it has to be some kind of like blockchain crypto related, but it doesn't really have to be. I mean, you can do a digital dollar. The thing is, a dollar comes from the central bank. So anything MasterCard uh, calls a digital dollar is like saying you got a dollar in the bank. Like, no, the bank owes you a dollar. It doesn't mean there's a dollar in the bank. The dollar is ultimately backed by the central bank in whatever country you're,
Yeah.
Deutsche, what have you.
Long term, though, I think the need for digital assets is more important on the end of attack vectors. So, you have individual, right? If it's on my own bank, right, and I'm using Interledger protocol and I'm just being a payment pointer, there's still, I guess I would say your system is less safe, um, in my opinion, right? Because it's not cryptographically protected, maybe. Right. Using a blockchain, I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
Well, this is the thing. You create value by reducing risk. The idea of blockchain is distributed systems, essentially. So you get rid of the risk that a centralized hub node will collapse. This is insurance business. If the insurance company goes down, everybody's screwed. Like, there's no more money. It's all gone. Look at
It's not.
FT.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It sounds like FTX is gonna push in just what you were talking about right now. That's the way I see it going down, where they're gonna use the blockchain to prevent stuff from like that from happening again.
Yeah, but the thing is, everybody could have just used the DEX, and that risk would be completely eliminated. Reducing risk improves value or increases value. Like, this is when I stumbled into the XRP ledger, why I couldn't believe they were giving this stuff away open source for free. It's an extremely powerful. It's like Bitcoin but squared. Um, Especially at the time. I mean, interledger protocols even I think certainly bigger than the XRP ledger. But yeah, just use the DEX and you wouldn't have that centralized counterparty risk. I mean, that's how they started out. I don't know, everybody. The thing is, Bitcoin doesn't have an exchange. So you have to have centralized exchanges in order to change the denomination of your value. So that reintroduces the risk of centralization to the whole architecture of the system. So it's like one step forward, two steps backward. It's logically not, you know, obviously taking two step backward with FTX's situation, right? You did this whole thing to avoid this exact type of situation. Yet you reintroduced the risk. And now the industry's paying the price. That's why it's irritating, honestly.
It doesn't make too much sense to me because their user base I think was like about maybe 1.5 million people compared to the other exchanges though.
It's the leverage because they had the futures and the derivatives. This is why Warren Buffett calls derivatives weapons of financial mass destruction, because of the leverage that it enables. That's why I mean, I didn't put two and two together, but when I saw this guy in FTX come up, because I saw when they first came out, because I was looking at the derivatives aspect, and then they got so big so quick.
Yeah, and didn't they acquire Ledger X?
They did several acquisitions, and they did, and I don't care. I didn't consider the stadium stuff and the political stuff. Well, the political stuff was like, how is this guy sitting in front of Congress? Like, I've never heard of this guy, more or
Yeah,
less.
in tennis shoes,
Yeah, and
not even
uh,
tied right.
it was too much. How do you say this? It looked like uh meteoric rise, and it was too easy. There wasn't. I couldn't see where the hard work or where the genius or where the breakthrough, versus like with Ripple, like they came out with interledger protocol. Like, holy shit. Okay, this is a brain buster. right? Like nobody in crypto had thought about a network of networks or a network of ledgers and at a protocol level without a token. Like this was completely new thinking. Like I didn't see that with FTX. There was no, you know, I don't know how to say that. Like innovation. I mean,
exchange, and they had a little bit of leverage, and then they also had CZ attack them. So it was a little bit of social media warfare, and they couldn't take it. They didn't have. He didn't have enough assets.
Yeah, I think the back end on that as well. I mean, that information from Alameda Research was definitely leaked out from somewhere, and obviously it went to the right parties as well. Yeah, I just think it's really funny too. I mean, this is a bit of speculation too. From the start of what Sam was actually doing, supposedly there was actually a connection to Tether there as well of about 500 million or so to be able to actually get that arbitrage up and running too. So it the scratch and sniff test with most things in life that it doesn't smell right and doesn't feel right either.
well, you know what I figured? Obviously incorrectly, but I figured he that FTX was backed by one of the big major banks, and that's where the the sort of cash was coming from in order to fund all these acquisitions and expansion and development and whatnot.
Yeah, as I say, like it's still speculation on that Tether report, but there is a bit of truth to that as well because I mean they deleveraged out of most of their Tether positions as well. They still did hold quite a lot of Tether, but yeah, that was definitely attached to that situation.
Well, so here's the thing. I'm going to kind of transition back towards Interledger. Um, an exchange like that would be a perfect business uh, to run an Interledger protocol connector. They have all the order books across all the different denominations of value. They've got liquidity, they've got users, they've got trade like value flow, trading activity. Um, this is the kind of person or organization that should be running like a Rafiki instance. I mean, this is where the liquidity is going to come from. And yeah, I don't know. Just trying to make that point. Like, just so in your head, when you're imagining like interledger protocols topology, it should really be like a JP Morgan, a Coinbase, as much as I'm not a big fan of them, but whatever. A Kraken, a Barclays, a central bank. Like these are the types of folks that should be, because in Rafiki, you have to intentionally peer with somebody. So, like you could say a central bank, uh, they're only gonna peer with regulated financial institutions. That's it. Which I mean, that's normal. That's how it works, and that's reasonable. There's purposes for this stuff, for these regulations and these licensing and stuff.
Well, I also think too. I mean, with this, like layer-based technology and application, to the existing markets too. I think you're right. Like a big player definitely needs to be able to take hold of that. But in retrospect as well, we need to make sure that whoever does take up this technology and the way they actually implement it as well, they're actually going to be a good actor the whole way through, because if say if it did go to an FTX or exchange, and then there was another attack on whichever service that someone deemed that they could take down, or for whatever reason, it almost puts that sort of hex on the technology a little bit too. And I think a lot of people out there now are sort of a bit worried about that. So as long as they give it to the right people that use it for the right reasons, and obviously it's just databasing and tech, they need to just make sure it goes to the forefront of our financial markets to be able to make it work and actually prove the use case for like the rest of this technology that comes with it.
There's a human element to it, and there always will be. There's no erasing that. That's why I say anthropology through numbers, and this is why I say blockchain. I hate this trustlessness BS. The tool is used to build trust, and with Rafiki, I have to explicitly trust you. It's the same, essentially, as like setting a trust line, right? Like I have to trust you, but I have to do something to explicitly demonstrate that I trust you and set that trust line. So this is, I call it the trust graph, but yeah, it's a good thing. The easier, cheaper you can make that trust, uh, the more you can enable people to establish that trust, the better everybody will do.
And that's why I think blockchain plays that pivotal role. Or distributed ledger technology. Am I getting rug right now? You guys able to hear me?
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's an enabling technology. You want to. This is why I never liked the narrative in the early like Bitcoin time, where there was like down with banks and down with governments. It was like what?
Yeah, and
Like,
and trustlessness, which is obviously that's not you're trusting the blockchain.
and I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm just not that paranoid. I'm not even sorry about it. I'm just not that paranoid. Like and I've made mistakes trusting people that turned out I shouldn't have. But no, I mean, I don't want to live in a world where I can't trust people. Um, and I and just from a forget that aspect of it, from like an industry design perspective, you like a systemic perspective, you want an enabling technology that you can then build like a business upon. If your if your narrative is we're going to disable these other systems, government and banks, it's just a bad pitch, right? Like, it's just a bad pitch. And it's bad. The story, it doesn't, it's not, versus if you say, we're going to enable these people to do and accomplish things like trust each other in situations where they currently can't, like, accomplish that trust. Okay, now this makes sense. Now I see value creation. But the idea that your big mission is to disable current systems is it's just what now you're doing value destruction. And I don't value destruction does not entice me. Like Value creation, yes. Value destruction, no. Enable, yes. Disable, no.
I think you're 100% right with that comment there, Karma. Like, it's value creation. It's building blocks to be able to make another level on what we already have, and you know, the uptake of technology is just getting faster and faster and faster. So, yeah, the value creation, that really hits that on the head.
Well, I mean, that gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning, right? You're going to go create some value, whatever form
So,
factor you do it in.
I was looking into currency. I'm sorry for like going off topic here, but I was looking into like physical currency, and I was seeing like there's really not that much physical currency in the world, and all of our money here in the U.S. it has serial numbers on it. This digital dollar is gonna have a serial number, and there's trillions of them.
I mean, it's got to be accounted for. So everything does. They actually catch terrorists because of serial numbers on paper dollar bills.
But as of the moment, our digital dollars do they have serial numbers?
Well, they would have a digital ID.
Yeah. Well, no, the paper dollars, like I got $1 in my wallet, it's got a serial number on it. What they do is they'll take, let's say, they're gonna send some money to a situation where there, might be some nefarious activity. So they send a batch of serial numbers. Then you can track where those serial number dollars traveled through the network. It's the complexity stuff. It's network analysis type of this is already done. I mean, it's like my mom's like, I don't want to do the internet because they're gonna track me, and I'm like, Mom, you've been using a credit card for decades. They know everything you bought. They know your spending patterns. They know your locations. They know, like, it's a sunk cost in accounting terms. I, you know, and so in finance, you're always looking at, well, what's the comparative advantage? So if you already have serial numbers on all the paper dollars, and sure, you can have Jim Bob from out in the woods, say, I'm not doing that digital stuff, right? But he's already he's using paper cash. It's already tracked, like it's already serialized and everything. It's not much different other than it's more enabling because you can like I can't email you a $1 bill, is my joke I make, but
Yes.
you get faster, cheaper, you get transactions more, uh like you can span a larger geography, right? Like you might be in a different state. I can't hand you a $1 bill, right? It's not physically possible. But I could send you a digital dollar and you got it. And it's cheaper. Then, the government gets more seniorage. That can go towards, well, it probably won't because of politicians, but that could theoretically go towards paying off some of the debt. Um, it,
But
the, there's all sorts of good.
when we do go to a digital dollar, I mean, the dollars we have in cash right now are gonna be automatically like, and then just the dollar bill itself is just gonna be a piece of paper, probably, huh? I would imagine so. Or they'd probably ask you to like trade it in or something, but I don't think they would be able to get. I would think it would just wouldn't accept cash.
What they would do, it's the same thing they do currently. honestly. Um, they would have, say, an exchange like, we'll pick on Coinbase. Not pick as an example. And Coinbase wants to offer their clients some U.S. dollar, digital dollar. So Coinbase would have to go out to the open market and buy some treasuries. Okay, start thinking circle here, which Goldman is behind, and or like maybe some mortgage-backed securities, what's called qualified assets, essentially. So they purchase some of these qualified assets. Then they take those qualified assets and they give them to the central bank. The central bank then issues Coinbase digital dollars. Now, Coinbase has a inventory of digital dollars that they can use to service their clientele. All the accounting balances out because when the central bank issued the digital dollars on the liability side of the central bank's balance sheet, they also uh, logged ledger entry for asset of an equal value, right? So +1 on the asset side, -1 on the liability side, everything balances out. So that's the mechanism. I hope that made sense. Maybe I went a little. I hope that made sense. It's a multi, and you have, because you have to think across multiple balance sheets.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions in the audience or on the speaker stage, please feel free to hit the request and come up and ask them. If you're wondering a question, there's no dumb questions, and I'm sure somebody else has the question, even somebody in the future that might be listening to the chat.
Just a simple one, guys. When moon? I don't know if it's just me, but I'm tired, man.
Well, I recommend getting some sleep then, Anonymous. But
No, I didn't mean that kind of sleep. I just meant like the psyops, man. It's like, I don't know if it's just me. I felt like I needed to like, I don't know. It feels like we've been waiting, 84 years. I
Yeah,
don't know
but
if it's just me. I don't know.
the psyops are what make it beautiful.
Well, let me say this, especially in light of like this conference, because honestly, it was invigorating. There's so much going on. I didn't even know about the tiger beetle thing, and I'm sorry, but I do try to keep on top of shit. Like I don't get caught off guard that often. I didn't even know about it. Zero awareness. There's so much progress going on, and the amount of progress is compounding. I mean, you can just see it. Like there was a point, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4, 5 years ago, where like initially I could pretty well keep on top of everything. I can't keep up anymore. I mean, this is where you have to develop some focus and just say, okay, I'm going to focus here. These other things, yeah, interesting, but I'm going to focus here. And I'm more on the financial, so XRP Ledger, Interledger Protocol, Flare, this stuff meets my criteria to focus on. The other stuff I just don't pay attention to. It's there's too much, and so step back out of yourself, right, and look at the whole industry development, this is it's just compounding at the industry level. I mean, there's great work being done on plenty of other networks. It's not that I don't. It's not there's great work being done. Like there's innovation, all this stuff. You just can't keep up with it all anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, like coming through, and like some like, I'm not saying everyone, but I think some of us have been like here 4 years or more. So like from like, it has been a long time. Like I think everyone has kind of reached like a limit where some people are more wary now than than others, because we have progressed in certain aspects, but in other aspects it's kind of like we're waiting for everything else to catch up.
Well, I've been hanging around for 10 years, so uh, maybe with a little bit of a longer time frame in terms of perspective or developing a perspective, because to see where it's come from and where it's gotten to, I mean, like legitimately, there's already laws in all these other countries, and this is a major topic on Capitol Hill. Like 10 years ago, that was not happening. I mean, so I guess there's some meditations where you do like some appreciation, right? Like it does take a little, maybe some time perspective, but to appreciate the state that the industry is in now, even though I'm irritated, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think there's a lot of BS, especially with the regulatory stuff. It's like, but take some time to appreciate. They're actually looking at this now. They're going to address the issue. There's a
Yeah,
there's a legal case. It's going to be addressed.
it's made a big statement, because like the scandal, like, is family members are talking about, oh, you don't own this, you own cryptocurrency, don't you? Have you heard about this FTX and stuff like that? So it has kind of bridged the gap. So with the connections in that, I suppose it goes, deep politically, scandals and stuff like that. So maybe everything we've been waiting for, it's like coming, but it's just like sometimes, like you said, there's too much information, and then there's regurgitated information, and then like we all know, like, because like some of us are like we've already planned for, like, we're ahead of time, but then we know that then, and then it's case of like we have to be present. So then when all that information, and sometimes the information is being regurgitated, and it's the same information but just in a different
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so so, so and then the psyops. I don't know, man. So I'm just saying, like, for me, just recently, like, I've hit a point where it's like I need a break, but fair play to everyone, man. It's like, you guys consistently hold the spaces, and you know, yeah, I've been at this past week. I've been a proper melting, psychologically melting, absolutely melting, because yeah, it's just I don't know. It's like the Truman Show, almost.
Well, I always look for the silver lining. Just when sometimes you find where you find your best opportunities in
Yeah.
the darkest days. And the thing is, the news industry is an advertising revenue based model, so they fear sells. Okay, so all of a sudden you got this FTX crash, boom, bang. Lots of people lose a lot of money. This is terrifying. Oh my God, we should be terrified. This is scary. Don't touch crypto. It's bad, bad, bad. This kind of stuff. Then they plaster that all over the place. Okay, and that saying, oh shit, what is it? Like any press is good press. It's essentially like an attention seeking saying. Like any press is good press, or like
Even bad publicity is good publicity
yeah,
because it brings attention to it.
right. So even though it's bad, it's like negative, I guess, publicity. Um, it's still getting eyeballs and brains thinking about crypto. And so in that sense, it's almost a good thing. That's me being optimistic. Realistically, people have lost a lot of money and been harmed, and the whole thing is a tragedy. But uh, you know,
But
we'll
but I guess that's why, you know, like everyone in the XRP community, we seem to be smart. Like, and it's just like I'm probably guessing most of us here have never touched the FTT token or the FTX token. I certainly haven't, but so maybe I'm just fortunate that I was never drawn to that. I was never drawn to Solana. All these ones everyone was talking about. I just wasn't. It was quite weird. I've just never been drawn to the ones that are all in the public eye now for the bad reasons.
well, me neither. And here's why. I could never get a clear answer on the very simple question. If you're going to pay me 1%, how are you making 2%? Answer that question, I might put some money in. But if you're not making 2%, then you obviously can't pay me 1%. So what the hell are you talking about? Like, it's the scratch and sniff test. Sorry, Shellfish, you can go
Yeah,
for it.
no, and I for Shelfer speaks. Anonymous. Your mental health, man, is the most important thing. It's the most significant thing, right? Your health in general, health is wealth. And so, if you need to leave the space, if you need to shut down the Twitter and the social media, man, go touch some grass and hug some trees and man, I
I've been what I've done is I've took some like I've just took a step back and I like tried to like just I've been watching Celebrity Jungle get me out of here. I've become a normie, but I'm not a normie. But like people are sending riddles and stuff like that, and I'm actually like I've kind of like flipped a button and switched off, and then kind of like I've flipped it kind of back on because I've come on a space tonight because obviously I've been like thinking about it. So
yeah,
it's kind of like when someone was saying a riddle before, I'd actually switched off,
yeah.
and
If I
then
could,
later on,
that,
I've recorded it and in like my mind, and then it's gone. Ah, okay, that's what they were talking about because I was just talking about the World Cup. There's like an example. Sorry, go on, Death.
if I could say anything, forget the riddles, man. There's one big rule I like to live my life by. You can only control what is under your control, and so anything outside of that horizon.
Yeah, that's correct, and that is a fundamental law that is still at the forefront in terms of like self management, like psychologically. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
any XRP holder has been put through an absolute test. That,
This
that's
is
that's
why
I
I
feel
basically
like
what
I've
I want
been
to say.
through a shitty test.
Death. One of the reasons that or one of the joys, I guess, that I get out of doing these spaces is I have zero control over what people are going to say. I mean, if someone comes up and they're rude, all right, bye. But like, I don't know what question someone's going to ask.
Yep. I love it. It's real. It's organic. And you have waited. Your hand is up. And I thank you so much for waiting. Oh, go ahead. And then I think Tom, your hand was up afterwards.
Yeah, I posted at the top. I had put it in the ledgerscale community earlier. Anonymous, I think it would be a really cool thing for you to watch. It talks about the networks that we like form through here through Twitter, and it just ends up really it blew my mind really, because I was thinking the last few weeks how much the Twitter spaces were like echo chambers or like tuning forks, so you bring closer to you like the people that are a lot like you. But this YouTube video actually showed how they were like manipulating. I've been waiting for like 10 minutes. In a minute. Thank you. Sorry guys. um, yeah. So they purposely are going through and shaking things up to put people into different categories, and like almost like a pressure cooker to see how they can move people around. And it's wild. So if you can go in there and you can go into spaces and know that like these people are all arguing, like, do you remember any other crashes having 24-hour spaces with like 10,000 people listening like they are with FTX? I don't. So I look at it as propaganda. And so I don't. I stopped going in to listen to all the stuff. I'm sure everybody is probably going to come in here and talk about it anyway. That way I limit my exposure.
Yeah, you're totally right. Dave told us from the big Dave told us from the beginning that, he said keep your eye on the prize, and all the hysteria and stuff like that. You have to come back to a kind of like not a left and a right. You have to kind of come back to a center. So it's yeah, it's it is no matter what you do, it can be fatiguing because everyone's waiting when moon, when moon, when moon, and like it's hard to stay in the present sometimes. And then not only that, I think recently, I think has it been Charles Hoskinson and Schwartz have even ended up warring each other. So if you get engrossed in that, and everything was kind of like friendly between everyone, and then all of a sudden it like even two big dogs like that are going toe to toe against each other. It's kind of like, wow, man, it's like Hiroshima. It's like a bomb's gone off, so to speak, metaphorically speaking.
Absolutely. I think Solomon was saying, like, in these times, to go back to the basics, get back to research and, like, educating yourself. Like, don't get caught in the drama, right?
Yeah, I suppose it's easier for some, and like depending on your makeup, it's difficult for others. But yeah, you are right.
Well, I would
I'm a
say
little
the most
lost.
difficult thing about being in this space is just the fact that you're in this space means you're in the very small percentage of innovator stage mindsets that exist in humanity. And so, with that being said, there is also a ton of pain that comes in because you get in this brand new technological risk factor, right? Because you're taking a risk, you're able to take a risk. That's what sets you apart. And then you have to wait for things to develop and change in society. And so that is, it could be looked at as a painful metric. It's definitely time consuming. So,
It's an adoption cycle.
but it is an adoption cycle, and sometimes it's generational wise. It takes, and most technological advances are. Tom, I think you had your hand up though, man. I don't. If you want to still speak, and then Alex, you put your hand up. So please feel free. You there, Tom? All right, go ahead, Alex. I'm sure.
Yeah, no. I just want to be able to touch on Anonymous's comment on it as well. Like, I mean, we're talking about two different things here that sort of get all wrapped up into one. We're talking about a technology, and then we're also talking about markets as well. So, I mean, technology. I mean, if technology works, it just goes ahead. It slowly but surely, gets adoption, or like people take that and use it for whatever they will. And sometimes it doesn't always end up at the end goal that the creator actually set it as well. But then you bring in the human element to what these markets are almost based around, but not really. I mean, the technology's there to be a tool to be able to progress us as human beings and the way that we do our processes. But then at the same time, we've also got that human side, which is the capitalization of technology and the money that we put into it. Um, it'd be a lot easier in some of this technology if there wasn't such things as tokens and money and all that kind of stuff. But that's just not the way that it is. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, like it's sort of, I always try to be able to divide the two. And I personally, I mean, I've got my investments in this space, but then I put my investments to the side, and then I come to talk to these guys and get involved with spreading the information of like the internet of value as it's being created, so people are just aware of it. And try not to be able to talk about the dollar values or anything like that. That's my bit when it comes to money. I mean, we're talking about the innovation of finance and accounting and stuff like that too. But you need to be able to, I personally believe everyone should separate the two, because I mean, I find super enjoyment, whether it's just discussing what's going on, the possibilities, how things work, and all that kind of stuff. So that's just technology. Yeah, it's just my way of thinking, man. Like I like to be able to separate the two, and look at for all as many positives as we possibly can to be able to make sure that we're all going in the right direction.
Well, I agree with you. The
Separate what two?
to use like sort of I guess vernacular. Uh, I feel like people that are just all talking about price are like fanboys versus people that are really say interested in the music. You know.
Well,
Mm.
there's sort of two things that go on there though as well, though, Karma. Like there is a price attached to this technology, and obviously that's the human side, and that's everyone wants to be able to create their own wealth and things like that too. But just looking at the actual technology and seeing what it may be able to do for the future, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, if we all want to just go make money, it's easy to be able to do. Like, I mean, you can jump on the stock exchange, that already works. You can trade in dollars, that already works. You can do arbitrage, holding on to sums of cash, and do it that old way. And if you look at the returns that come through from the old system, most of the time, if you're doing 5 to maybe 6% per year on the stock exchange, you're doing pretty well. Some people do better, some things go up and down, and you've got to be either right in the know with that kind of stuff to make 20% in a year, or have a massive big team of people and really invest in it as well. I mean, there's not many people in this room that has a team of people that literally just go through the charts. They look at all the information out there. They pay people for more information to be able to find out what's going on before everyone else does, and things like that. So I mean, this market is so volatile that it's, for me, I mean, day trading is something that I do on a regular basis, but it's not the be all and end all for me as well. Like, I like to be able to go with the trends and make little profits from here to there, and just make sure that I'm all set. But I mean, long term, it's the use of the technology, and if I make money from that, then so be it. But I mean, if I don't, I'm also not that worried about it either. Like, I just like to be able to see processes get a little bit better, and like they say, bank the